SBL different than NA?
So I'm not sure if I brought that up when I brought everything in, but you have your NA28 now, which has a very extensive textual apparatus that tells you which manuscripts have what reading. You have your UBS 4, the United Bible Society's 4th edition, which has a more selective textual apparatus.
Okay.
And now you have the SBL, and what that does is it takes the readings, the text, the main text, from the NA27, the UBS 4, the Westcott and Hort, and the Byzantine text, which is edited by Robinson. And what it does is it devises what it thinks its best reading is and puts that in the text. And in the footnotes, your apparatus is the different readings from these editions.
What are we doing with the collection from parchments to parchments here, or is there a complete book that they're drawing from, or?
Well,
When they say the apparatus, is it like, well, this is the best we have from this as old as it gets?
for these,
Yeah.
okay, so here are your different editions, and this is a little complex until you start to actually have one in front of you. Each one of these are what are called your critical editions. And they will have the Greek text up here in the main text of the book. And then it'll have notations. You might have a little O up at the next to a word, and that tells you that that word alone is omitted. And down here, you'll have like verse 1, verse 2, verse 3. Say, for instance, this was within verse 3. You would look to 3, and you'd see the little O sign, and you'd see A, Aleph, and a variety of other notations down there. What those notations are telling you is that Aleph and A omit that word. And then you'll have over here, after all of the manuscript evidence is listed, you'll have a dash mark, and then you'll have text. And then you'll have manuscripts that are listed. So here is the manuscript evidence for the omission of that word, and here is the support for the inclusion. And what each one of these is doing, the NA27, the UBS 4, the Westcott and Hort, they're saying this text is what we think is original. But if you have qualms or scruples with what we think to be original, here are your footnotes, essentially, complex footnotes, down here that tells you this is the evidence against us, and this is the evidence for us. You make the decision. Now, SBL makes things a little bit more complicated.
How many areas of qualms are there?
If you pick up one of those, I mean, half the bottom is a textual apparatus, and the other half on the top is the actual text.
So what are we talking about? A preposition here, an article there?
Yeah, see, that's the difficulty here is that there are thousands upon thousands of variants. But those variants are very, very minimal, like the inclusion or exclusion of the definite article, the inclusion or exclusion of a conjunction. Sometimes it makes exegetical differences, most of the time it doesn't. And a lot of the times when it does make an exegetical difference, it's very minimal. So you'll hear lots of different arguments about textual criticism and the reliability of the New Testament, and we just have so many different manuscripts that the smallest little change here and there is going to get recorded, and it makes it seem like there's a lot of things that are wrong with the text, but in reality, just spelling changes get taken into account, all kinds of little things, and with as many manuscripts as we have, it's to be expected that little changes like that will take place throughout.
Yeah, it's logarithmic too, so if you have two differences to descendant parchments, that'll
Right.
make it seem like there's a multitude of
Mhm.
variants when it's really
Yeah.
an article here, like you said.
So what I use is I use the NA27. It has, like I said, the most textual evidence down here for making your decisions. And the SBL text it's a great text, but it's a step removed from what these guys are doing. So the SBL text will have all of this, and then it'll have your omission sign or inclusion or whatever, but down here, instead of listing Aleph, Alexandrinus, Sinaiticus, all of these different manuscripts, instead of citing those, they'll say NA 27, or WH biz text UBS. So it will tell you this is the text that we think is original, and here are the critical additions that side with us or side against us for that decision. So you have no textual evidence. You just have the decisions of other committees or other individuals who have compiled your Greek New Testaments. And it can be very helpful, and it's free, as opposed to $50+.
Yeah.
Does that help to clarify just a little bit? And you don't really get into textual criticism, at least at the seminary level, until the third semester that you take Greek. And this is...
I took a systematic theology course, and there was an introduction. I think Inerrancy by Norman Geisler was one of the chapters on inerrancy. That was the tip of the iceberg.
Mm-hmm. They want you to be exposed to the fact that...
Yeah, right, yeah.
In systematic theology, they want you to know up front the fact that what you have in front of you is not a single text. It is an eclectic text, as we call it. Hebrew scholarship is a little bit different in that you'll buy the what's called the Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia, and it is based upon one single text, but it still has all of your manuscript evidence at the bottom.
In the Leningrad Codex?
I think that they used to use that one. I'm not sure. It may still be the Leningrad Codex. I'm not sure which one it is that's used for the Stuttgartensia. I'm not able to answer that. But what you have in your New Testament texts is not a single manuscript. It is pieced together from all sorts of different manuscripts. Now, Robinson is going to argue that his text is, because he bases it upon one single family, the Byzantine textual family, and he makes sure that he has textual evidence in the form of manuscripts to support what he comes up with as a text. He's on the very, very fringes of textual criticism. All right, chapter 12, I think it is?
Yes.
Yes. And the questions that you have, fire them away.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna go with the answers.
Of course. We start with 5, right?
Yeah.
You want to take it? You don't have to pronounce the Greek if you don't want.
All right. I had, the crowds are being saved from the world.
Good.
But the answer was, crowds are being saved out of the world.
Yeah, you know what?
So is from okay?
Yeah.
All right.
From is fine. From is one of the translations for ek.
Okay.
Does it depend on the case, though?
No, ek is a preposition that can mean out of, from, I forget all of the different uses of it. But it always takes your genitive case. So. 6.
Evil ones are glorified, but righteous ones glorify God.
Very close.
Yeah, this is the reflexive one. I looked at, I don't know how to tip.
How do you get evil men glorify themselves?
Yeah.
Where do that themselves show up?
Yeah, how is this reflexive? What's your clue?
Okay, well, I wasn't even going on the reflexive bit. You just left out one thing. You left out men. If that was supposed to be an inclusive reading, like evil ones as opposed to men specifically, then that's fine, but anthropoi is there.
Yeah.
So evil men are being glorified. Or, well, not are being glorified, because that would be a passive rendering of it.
And I had a question of doxasus.
Doxazo, no, passive would work. How do you know that it's themselves? That is simply a middle translation as opposed to a passive translation. Alright, so doxags.
Zone,
Alright, remember that we had our present, middle, or passive endings, right?
Okay.
So, ontai is one of those present, middle, or passive endings. Now, middle would be the men, or the evil men rather, are glorifying, but we have to have some sort of a,
object.
no, we've got to have a reflexive sense, or a, remember we have our uses of the middle. We have the reflexive middle, the intensive middle, or the reciprocal middle. And this is a true middle or passive. It's not a deponent verb. It's from doxazo. So its ending is not my naturally, which means that if it has this form, we have to translate it like a true middle or a passive.
Mm-hmm.
So you get are glorifying themselves from one of those three different middle uses, which is reciprocal, reflexive, or intensive. So you would pick from those different uses of the middle.
I said object because I said there's no object of glorifying
Well,
in this sense. So would that be the tip-off?
that would help. But you could also have a different translation, which would be the passive. The evil men are being glorified.
Yeah.
And we don't have to have the agent.
Okay, now that's what I
No,
had.
that's what I had for doxazonta, was are being glorified.
Okay.
It's not correct, though. It's are glorifying.
Well, remember, what you have as an answer in the back of the book is one of many different answers you can have now. We're starting to multiply the possibilities of meaning.
Oh, okay.
So evil men are being glorified isn't wrong?
No, it's not wrong.
Okay, even though he says it's wrong in the back of the book?
Does he say specifically that it's wrong?
Yes.
Well, not
It
wrong.
says-
He's got a different answer.
He says evil men glorify themselves versus evil men are being glorified. And it was like, how do you tell the difference?
Well,
how do you put it
he
in the
doesn't
middle
say that that
passive?
is specifically a wrong answer. It is a possible answer.
It's not what he was looking for.
It's
I
not,
felt wrong.
but
I went, oh, man, I thought I had this.
it's a decision as to whether or not it is middle or passive.
Okay.
And I think that either one can.
So what is it that you look for to decide whether it was middle or
Because
passive?
Jacob makes there's a sense issue here, because evil men are being glorified, we think about, they have a following. But what he wants to know is that they're glorifying themselves.
Yeah, the way that he gets that nuance there, decides between the middle as opposed to the passive, is because of the next clause,
Okay.
which is, but righteous men glorify God. So there seems to be something about what the evil men are glorifying. Does that make sense? The righteous men have God as the object of the glorifying, whereas the righteous men have the evil men have themselves as the object.
Okay.
That's the contrast he's setting up.
Okay.
I feel better.
So that would be why he uses the themselves as the translation. It's because the subject is both the subject and the object
Okay.
of the
But
glorifying.
it's not always solid to say, if you're missing the object, consider it reflexive.
Not always.
Oh, okay.
No. Because we can just say that men are being glorified, and they think well of themselves. We don't necessarily have to have the object of the glorifying specified in a passive
Okay.
construction.
Oh, and the next instance
I don't
of
think.
to glorify, Dr. Zusi? Dr. Zusi?
Mm-hmm.
No, Sigma, it wasn't, I had will glorify. Okay, that wasn't amalgamated.
No,
No.
The root is.
the root is dagzagzo. So if this were future, it'd have to be so this is it's a little more difficult because it's sort of the reverse of amalgamation. Our true root is dagzad, the delta. When the delta combines with the sigma, the delta drops out and the sigma retains.
Okay.
Any other questions on that one? Hit me with the hard questions to begin with. All right, how about 7?
The evil disciples are being thrown out of the churches.
Evil disciples. Yes? So that is a passive construction. We have the hupa there to specify the agent.
So word for word, I had the
I know.
out.
No, we don't have the agent there. See, that this is passive construction without an agent.
Mm-hmm.
The evil disciples are being thrown out.
Yeah. The caveman is, they have thrown out of the church's evil disciples.
Yes, but that caveman is inaccurate caveman because in that construction you have the object of the being thrown out, the evil disciples.
Because I looked at it as, I look for the nominative first,
Mm-hmm. That's what you should do.
and so I saw that the nominative was at the end of the sentence.
Right.
So after I got all my words translated, I had to put them in the beginning of my sentence
Mm-hmm.
in order to make them the subject.
Correct. So in this construction, we have the subject of the sentence all the way at the end, which probably would indicate some sort of, if you saw that in the New Testament, some sort of markedness, that the evil is the subject is being reserved for the very last to place emphasis on it. Also notice something that that will continue to occur in New Testament Greek. We have ekbalantai, ek, and that is just idiomatic. You see what I'm getting at? We could just say balantai, ek, tone, ekklesion, poi, hani, roi, mathetai. Because that would still mean the same thing. The evil disciples are being cast out of.
Is it necessary to move the evil disciples at the beginning of the sentence, though? Does it make the same sense?
In English, you do.
They have thrown out of the church's evil disciples?
You have made, and this is acceptable, you have made a passive construction, which is the evil disciples are being thrown out,
Into a present active.
yes, into a
Active, sorry.
active.
Okay.
Passive to active. Active is they threw
Okay.
out
Okay.
evil disciples. So that has transformed the sentence.
Change the voice and.
The meaning, and this is something that I don't want to get too hung up on, but it's sort of what I've been studying this semester. At a deep level, deep structure, the meaning is the same, right? The evil disciples are thrown out. They're no longer there. But the surface structure is different. The surface structure is the difference between a passive and an active construction. And while meaning lies at both at the deep structure level, it also lies at the surface. Something is trying to be communicated in the choice that the author has made to make it passive as opposed to active. Does that make sense?
And so the reason for making it passive is to emphasize what?
To emphasize that in a passive construction, typically the focus is on the grammatical subject of the sentence, which is further confirmed in this specific sentence by hoi paneroi mate tai being at the very end of the sentence. So not only is it emphasized in the construction as it is passive, but it's also emphasized by the fact that it's at the very end of the sentence. That won't always be the case, but you kind of have a combination of the both there. Number 8.
And this is one I missed too. I had the men have received life of the Lord. And it should be the men themselves, so this is intensive. So my question for you is, how do you spot intensity?
Well, for one thing, in your first translation, you translated lambanantai as if it were a perfect, have received.
Okay. Is received.
Yeah, it's
Or
present.
receiving?
Are receiving is what it should be.
Okay.
So, again, that, I had men are receiving life from the Lord, but the answer had the men themselves. So,
Yeah,
again, it was, where does this hidden
Intensity.
word from?
both translations are acceptable. It's a difference between a reflexive usage of the middle and taking it as a passive.
Okay.
No. I take that back. If it were a passive construction, it would be the men were received, not receive.
So what's the answer?
So it has to be, does that make sense?
So it has to be the men themselves?
Yeah. This is a
Where are we?
complex. All right,
We're on 8.
Not the boy.
bon on tie.
Tie.
All right. So the passive construction, or the passive translation, would be the men, or let's just simplify it with they, were or are being, that's the present, received. The active, they are receiving. The reflexive of the middle, they themselves receive.
So it's not intensive, it's reflective.
It is intensive,
Okay.
if we're being specific on our usage of those words. Reflexive would mean that it is the object as well,
Right.
and they are not receiving themselves.
Okay.
So this is the intensive use, not reflexive. Good catch.
So this is the men themselves are receiving life of the Lord.
Mm-hmm. If we were to translate that as a passive, it wouldn't make as much sense. The men were received And you'd have to have, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Because then you have the object as being Zoe, or received life from the Lord. Have I made things more difficult there?
Let's just go on.
That makes sense. I have a question about number 7, actually,
Mm-hmm.
if we're down to 8.
Yeah.
That last phrase, Hoi Paneroi Mapeitai,
Mm-hmm.
I should probably already know this, but why do we have the oi endings on the article and the adjective, but not on the noun?
From?
Mapeitai, it's feminine,
Nope.
it's third declension.
Nope.
I don't know.
It is a masculine noun according to the first declension.
Okay.
So it has to have the I ending. Because that's the
Okay,
noun.
which we normally think of as feminine, but it's technically first declension. Okay.
And because of the fact that it is a masculine noun, we're not going to make Paneroi Panerai. That's a legitimate form for the adjective, but it has to agree in case, number, and gender. So here, a gender mismatch happens even though a form match occurs.
Okay.
So it looks like it's the same, but you're now indicating that this is feminine by that ending. It has to be or. And now it's matching. Nine?
The scriptures are read by the faithful disciples, or are being read?
Are being read.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, did you
Are
have anything?
reading.
Did you, before I?
No.
Okay, in my rough caveman, I had, they are being read the writings by the faithful disciples. But that's not the answer. How do you get the scriptures are being read by the faithful disciples?
Well, you had everything there. You just used the implied subject from the verb
Mhm.
and made it the actual subject. But hi graphi is
Is a nominative plural, so
Mhm.
therefore the writings had to be
read,
the subject.
right? So it's your translation is great. Just make the writings or the scriptures be the subject. Everything else on it was spot on.
So it's the scriptures are being read by faithful disciples.
Mm-hmm. And the reason we say put the being in there is because we might make it sound past tense. We just said are read. So the present nature of it stressed by the progressive being are being read. It's one of those unique things in the English language.
Okay, here's one that messed me up. Is, the disciples are being taught, or the good disciples are being taught the true word.
Perfect.
Well, no, because it's reciprocal. And in the answer, they had one another after that. So the disciples themselves are being taught the good word, or the true word. The good disciples are being taught themselves the good word.
He's just favoring a middle translation. It's
We
really
made a bunch of legalists out of ourselves. Literalists.
yeah. And the funny thing about it is the middle is not used very often.
Good.
I mean, you have the middle passive form, but most of the time, and I may be corrected, but I think that most of the time in non-deponent verbs, when you see the middle passive ending, it's going to be passive. A lot of the times, your reciprocal pronoun is used to express the reciprocal idea, alelo. We'll get to that later. But yeah, both of those translations work.
So is the basic drift of the passive voice to highlight the subject
And the middle voice.
and the middle voice?
Yeah, both of those are to highlight the subject.
Okay.
Yeah. The difficulty I think we're finding here is we've encountered a instance, which we haven't encountered before, where form can have divergent meanings. Does that make sense? Most of the time before we've had your present means this, and you can stress the progressive aspect of it or just the simple present. They are good, or they are being good. What I mean, you get what I mean. You can stress the progressive aspect of it. But here we actually have the form being the same, and it can be middle or passive. And he's not going to clutter up the back with his answer sheet to be both of those different options. So in instances where it can be both middle and passive according to the context, don't doubt yourself too much on the translation. And I know that you're kind of at that point where you're not entirely confident as to
Exactly.
in which instance that's the case. So 11.
Susan.
The faithful come and are being baptized by the apostles.
I had
The faithful ones.
Faithful is, the faithful was feminine,
yeah, I thought it was women.
Yeah,
so therefore you have to put the faithful women.
I would go with the faithful woman. Otherwise, we would have hoi pistoi, and that would be the faithful ones or the faithful men. So. Deliberate choice to change to the feminine. 12.
The faithful children are being known by God.
Perfect.
Now, I have a question about the first word. Genoskeptai.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose that ending instead of the they in the third person plural?
Good. Very, very good.
What's that? What's the question?
If it's plural of children, why is not genoskeptai?
It's an aggregate noun. Like, you say the grass is green, you don't say the grass are green, it's a collection. The rice is cooked, not the rice are cooked. So it's a plural that's treated as singular.
Okay. Non-grammatical explanation. Neuter plurals can be treated as singular nouns. We learned that rule, and I know it seems like ages ago. And I think actually you had this question the third week of class. It's just been that long ago. It was on page 30.
1,000 crammed facts ago.
It was on page 34. And I said, I remember the conversation because I have it marked in my book. The last time I taught this lesson, or taught through this book, I marked it as being wrong because I forgot the rule and realized that it is, in fact, a neuter plural that can be treated as a singular.
You did my rice and grass thing too.
Yep, you did. And that continues to trick you up. You know, you see a plural noun.
It was just a question.
And the weird thing is about it is that it can occur with a plural verb or a singular verb. It all just depends on how the author has decided to do it.
Gene Mathetes, Agathos, true disciples to know themselves.
Not quite, and I'm sure you saw the back of the book that that was not quite there. Any other?
I had the disciple is known love, but that was wrong. It was you are becoming a good disciple. And I just put 2 exclamation marks
Yes.
saying, how did they get you were becoming a good disciple?
Okay, so what is,
I had Gene known.
yeah, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
Gene comes from where, anyone?
I wasn't
Get online?
sure.
Yes. So
Okay.
when we cut off the ending, my, and then cut off the connecting vowel, we just have gin, and we add the second singular ending, gine.
And that makes it,
That makes it the subject you, and ginamai means are becoming, or become, I become. So you are becoming. It is a deponent verb or a so-called deponent verb, so you can translate it like it's active. You are becoming a good.
that's rather an easy one.
Kind of tricky. Really tricky. I find that the fewer words there are in a sentence, the more difficult the sentence is. 14.
So what was the answer though, Jake?
You are becoming a good disciple.
The apostle is being led with his brothers into the church of God.
Good.
Where did his brothers come from?
Meta tone adelphone autu. With the brothers of him.
Okay, so it's of him, okay, I had he, of he, which, okay.
And we can make that his if we wanted to, either way. 15?
You all come out of the wilderness and into the house. But the
Perfect.
answer is, you are going out of the wilderness and into the house.
Yeah, and I did see that, at least on a couple of the quizzes. Paru amai is easy to confuse with erkamai. Erkamai is I come, and paru amai is I go.
Because
Okay.
on page 90, it says,
It's both of those definitions as I come and I go.
yes.
Okay. I learned it very rigidly with erkamai I come and paru amai I go. I see it.
So that was why I was confused.
And then he,
Because I looked it up and then I got the answer. I was like, no, wait a minute.
yeah.
I'm quoting him.
So
The
that
front,
that works.
And then the answer's not in the back.
You come out of the wilderness, and into the house. Sorry. Or you are going.
Okay.
You are coming. Either one. I think I need to correct that as an answer on your quiz then.
How about me?
Probably. 16. Did we go to 16?
No, it's 11.
Yeah.
Oh, we went to 11?
Yeah.
But I gave you 20.
This one goes to 11.
Okay then. How about we finish up on 16? We'll take a quick break,
Okay.
and then we will either answer the rest of those or move on to the next, or both.
I put through the Son of God, he saves from the sins of you. That's rough caveman.
Revisit your verb though. because I'm sure that's where your question is.
But the answer is you were being saved from your sins by the Son of God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank God.
Your translation again was through the Son of God.
He saves you from the sin, from your sins,
Yeah.
whatever.
So you have your subject is off, which is sort of altered the way that you've translated the thing. So soze is from sozo, and we cut off the omega, and we add, it could be sozamai or soze, which is your second singular, making the subject of the sentence, you are being saved. You are being saved from your sins. And dia
Okay.
is your intermediary agent. Dia with the genitive.
Okay.
So when we see those short ones of the A at the end.
You had hupa with the genitive is the direct agent, or how does he call it? Not direct. Yeah, direct agent. With a dia, it is the intermediate agent, and with just in or in plus the dative. With just the dative or in plus the dative, it is impersonal.
Okay, and what stands for again?
The answer altogether was by the Son of God, you are being saved from your sins.
Okay.
Or you are being saved from your sins by the Son of God.
And Sue's your.
All right? All right, to answer your first question then, what I'm going to cram into your brains today is the perfect middle passive and the future middle indicative. And this right here, before we even launch into forms, is important to notice. What is different between the two of these, other than the fact that I wrote them out this side out more than the other?
One represents a complete house past tense as opposed to the future.
Well, no, not just that. We are dealing with two different tenses. This is perfect middle passive, and this is future middle. So far, all we've learned in terms of the middle passive is that the forms are the same. That continues with the perfect, but it is not the case with the future. The future, you have forms for the middle, and you have forms for the passive. Unique forms for each one of those. So keep that straight in your mind. For the present and the perfect, your middle and passive forms are the same. For the future, you have unique forms for both the middle and the passive. We're only going to learn the middle today. This will be relatively painless, at least I hope. How did we conjugate the perfect? Active. Build it for me.
Kappa.
Close. First thing though.
There's a augment.
And
I mean, looking at the stem.
where our perfect was the reduplication plus the stem plus the kappa alpha plus our secondary active endings. Now don't write all of this down because it's not going to be entirely the same. For your perfect middle, you will have the reduplication, the stem, no kappa alpha, and obviously you're not going to have your active endings. You're going to have the primary middle passive ending, sorry. What have we typically had between the stem and your ending?
Some sort of connecting vowel.
It's not the case with a perfect middle passive. No connecting vowel. So for Lua, conjugating down, we can give our reduplication, our stem, Lu, and then our endings. My, and here's why we learned my sai tai, meta is the untie, because here instead of la lu a, it's la lu sai.
Meta is the untie. Okay. That's good. I wish I'd have known that. That meta is the untie.
Just remember what the ista is.
Got it.
Alright, so principles that we've already learned. You already learned your my sai tai, meta is the untie. We just have our reduplication and our endings. How would we translate lalumatha?
We are being loose.
Perfect.
We have loosing. We have no.
We are being loosed.
Not quite.
We
So-
have been moved?
Yes. Or he offers another way, which is we are loose.
Well, he had ourselves in it too. I have loosed for myself.
Yeah, that would be the middle.
Okay. That's perfect.
He also has an important little note just for your own awareness, that some endings, some words with consonant endings like grapho, in what did he say, the first person or the third? In both first and third. In the first person, instead of ge, graph, my, it's ge, gramai. And ge, graptai.
So that would
The fee, and it's changed to a mu or a p. Not too huge of a change. And you should be able to recognize, based upon the reduplication and the ending, that it's a perfect and a middle passive. I give you these things because I know that you're an inquisitive group and you're going to find them in the exercises and ask about them later. But don't be too worried about them because you don't see them too much, and when you do see them, you're able to recognize them because they're not radically different. So for the future, how did we build our future before? Good, but walking through it, STEM, plus,
Primary active endings.
good, and for this, it's going to be primary, middle, endings. And we are going to have a connecting vowel for this one. Alright, so we can just go right on through and say loo, 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 loo.
Oh, what you think?
Not two. Sorry. Then we can add our sigma. And
Oh, I thought those were the endings. Oh, I can remember.
our connecting vowel, loo,
Yeah, it was.
loo. Connecting vowels, minority. Luamai, Lusamai rather, Lusit. No? Making mistakes all over this side. Lue, Lusitai, Lusamatha, Lusista. Again, another mistake. Lusantai. And we would translate how for the first singular.
I will be loosed.
No.
I will have been loosed.
Mm-mm.
I will lose myself.
Yes. I will be loosed is passive, and we just have the middle on the side. I will have been not loosed is a future perfect, and I don't think we ever learned those forms, if there are any. And I will loose myself is the reflexive. I will loose myself. Or it could be something else. It could be the intensive. I myself will loose.
Loose myself. I'm not sure.
So it's still middle if I said, I myself will loose the knot.
Mm-hmm. The weird thing, or the more complicating thing later is you can have an active form of the verb with a reflexive pronoun, and it still be translated as if it were middle.
And that I myself will loose was called a what?
I myself will loose is the intensive use.
Intensive.
This is the reflexive use. I will loose myself.
Would it be the same word?
I know.
It would be the same word. I will lose myself, and I myself will lose.
Yeah.
How do you know
Same way we did in last chapter. Context.
it?
Yeah. Context.
Okay.
And the last thing for this chapter to learn is your future active indicative of Amy. I find this form of Amy to be a little easier to learn than the rest of them. Because it's just built, I mean, it's built rather regularly. You have epsilon sigma, and then you have your secondary active endings. Secondary middle passive endings, I'm sorry. The tricky thing about this is it's not translated passive, it's a being verb, so it's still active. I will be, you will be, even though it has the middle passive endings. So esamai, esse, estai, esamitha, esesta, esantai. You have adverbs, they modify verbs. They come in all shapes and sizes. Learn them in your vocabulary. And finally, you have min de. And that's the way you would say, on the one hand, on the other. You got all this down?
Yes.
So you would have min at the beginning of the first clause. And then at the second clause, remember you can't have de as the beginning of a clause. It has to be in the second position or a little bit further down. But de indicates the new clause, and it's just a simple contrast. On the one hand this, on the other hand that. And that would be your chapter.
Where was the,
I think
on
that
the one hand?
Then
Oh, man.
And then you also have, and I don't know why he doesn't have it tone section for this, you have uda uda. So you can develop a little bit of a chant out of that. And that's just a neither nor construction. Kind of like your tekai or kai kai, both and. Uda uda is neither and then nor. Minde is on the one hand, on the other.
what does post-positive mean?
He explained this earlier. That is just simply the
So that it can't be at the first and
right. So you got min, and then you'll have le, lu, tai, de. De can't go there. It has to be post-positive after the first element. Personally, I find this chapter to be one of the easiest ones that we've encountered so far, just because you've already learned your middle passive endings. You've already learned all of those different ways to construct the verb, and it's just understanding where each one of those elements go. You're not learning new forms this week. You're not learning a new tense. You're really just applying what you've already learned. And we have our vocabulary. And the verbs that you have here aren't new vocabulary either. You've already seen this. It's just showing you the form of the verb for your, what is this? Your perfect tense, your perfect principal part. So, beblemai is from balo. Note that. Beblemai, I have been thrown. Bebaptismai is from baptizo, I have been baptized. Egnosai, egnosmai rather, is I have been known, from gnosko. aware. It's still built off of your gamma, nu, omega root. Gegrami is from grapho, I have been written. Lalumai from luo, I have been loosed. Sesosmai from sozo, I have been saved.
So you always take the first letter of the stem and then add that with the slow vowel.
Correct. Except in the case of gnosko. And that rule was when you have a double consonant in the root of the word, then you just do the temporal augment. You don't actually reduplicate. And the rest of your vocabulary, say after me. Akri, until or up to. Eti, still or yet. Heos, until, up to. Kathos, just as or as. Kalos, rightly or well. You've already learned kalas. Noon, now. Hapu, where. Hate, when. Uketi, no longer. Uki, not. Samaron, today. Tate, then. Gar,
I've seen a lot of gars
yep,
yeah.
in the New Testament. For. Dia, therefore. A, or. Minde, on the one hand, on the other hand. Ude, and not, nor, not even. Ude. Neither, nor. Un, therefore, then. Now here is the more difficult element of the chapter. You know how he's been alternating. The vocabulary of this chapter is more difficult. There's, I forget, I read at one point, nouns are the easiest thing in a language to learn. Verbs follow that, prepositions, and then conjunctions, and adverbs around there. And you've got a lot of conjunctions and a lot of adverbs here, and those are going to be more difficult. They're not as concrete. But don't let it stop you. Honestly, I find conjunctions to be not nearly as difficult as prepositions, and you guys handle prepositions just fine. So,
I can't remember that one preposition, I forgot what it was, but I kept saying it was for and against, right?
So is the first sentence, what's deal again? For?
dia is
Therefore.
therefore.
Therefore, the slaves were loosed by the master?
Very close. Were loosed would be an aorist passive.
So, will be loosed by the master?
Have been.
Have been. You have the reduplication of the first letter, let. But everything else is great. You just got the tense off. So therefore, the slaves have been loosed by the master.
Today we've been baptized by the apostles in truth.
Very close. Two elements are off.
Ome is I have been baptized. Hupo,
You got that right.
by.
Today I have been baptized by. Now you just need to get to apostolou to agathou right.
Oh, by them. I'm never gonna get olives by the good apostles.
The last element, you got
Is it plural or singular?
singular.
By the good apostles.
Good. Yeah, agathos and agapes are very, very close and difficult to remember the difference. Agapes is love.
Okay.
Agathos is good. 3, blazing through.
It's 4.
Mm-hmm.
So something, the Messiah.
Carlos is good. All right, well.
Good.
Let's see, so it's just coming.
Mm-hmm. I'll help you.
For the right, but the Messiah has come with the holy writings.
Not right. Let's get the first clause.
Okay.
For the Messiah rightly comes.
Kathos,
And then kathos. That'll help.
comes, erhekitai.
Right? So the Messiah rightly comes. Next clause begins with kathos. And what does kathos mean?
Just as.
Good, just as. So the Messiah, for the Messiah rightly comes just as, and then this is the easier
Or
part.
Kathos. Or just as. Kathos and Kathos,
Just as this,
the Holy Scriptures.
Well, that's,
All right.
just as has been written about
oh,
him.
Raphtaya.
What about
Writings.
Hagios?
I'm not very much.
Hagios.
Just as been written about him, that would be in the writings.
Good, so somebody else put it all together?
Messiah rightly come just as it was written in the holy writings.
Good, just as it has been written.
Okay. Now, I'm getting tripped up here with erketai, and I thought it was a form of has. What would have been form has?
Has,
Is it a similar word or something?
you mean to have.
Yes.
To have, okay. I was like, has is just a helping word.
Have.
So,
What do they call that?
echo is to have.
Okay.
It's very similar. Erikamai is to come.
Okay.
You have that row in there.
Erketai. It was
Mhm.
to
If-
have.
Ekatai and
Okay.
Erica. Good. So are we all on the same page for number 3? The Messiah rightly comes just as it has been written about him in the holy writings.
What did you have a pattern about?
Perry with the genetic is about, or concerning. Perry with the accusative is around. Four. And how about we do the Greek as well, pronunciation, pronouncing. It'll help, especially with new vocabulary.
hutas hu baptistai eiston Jesu. He does not baptize his. No, he does not baptize. No, he does not have been baptizing. No.
All right, ask for some help from your neighbors or work it out. What's our subject?
Hutas.
Hutas, and that means?
He.
It doesn't mean he?
It's this.
Yes, so autos is he. Hutas is your nominative singular of your two pronoun. So this, and then how else could we translate that? It's not modifying anything, so it's not in an attributive relationship, it's in a substantival relationship. So this one or this man. That's your subject.
Who is not.
Mm-hmm.
Will not baptize himself.
So you're thinking baptistai is what? Parse it for me.
It is perfect.
Good.
I thought it was future.
Why did you think it was future?
It's
Thought
a
it was-
sigma.
Yeah, so our root is baptizo, which is truly from the root
That's it.
baptid. And when we have the sigma added to that, that drops and we have baptis, which is why you thought that that is that. But our principal part is what it's called, the root on which the perfect is built, is baptis, which is why he has that in the vocabulary as,
How I have been baptized.
yeah, baptismi.
So it's in the form of, it's not I, it's he.
So we had this one as your subject, so this one has been
But then
baptized, but
there's
it's
an U there,
negative.
so it's not. So it's therefore, this one has not been baptized
Good.
by Jesus
Or
Into.
into
Okay.
Jesus. I'm glad you caught that it was Jesus, because for some reason I was thinking, and I didn't even read it, I saw the Yoda there and thought, oh, Jordan, not baptized into the Jordan. That was my mind playing tricks with me, expecting something that wasn't there. 5.
Okay, it's not lelu, it's just lu. So that tells us what tense it's in, or not in.
If it's not lelu, it tells you it's not in the future.
So.
Not in the perfect.
So it's either a middle or passive.
Break it apart. You have Lusamatha.
So the slaves were losing love, the goodness. What's agathos? I forgot.
Agathos is good.
Good.
The meta is we ourselves.
We will.
All right, let's stop.
It's louder.
We are a little bit here.
But it's a sigma.
Good. So let's break this apart together so that we all see. Lusamatha. What is the root of the? What is it from? Luo. It's from luo. It's built on the stem lu. So that's the stem. What do we have next?
We have a sigma.
we have a sigma. And what does the sigma indicate?
Future time, morphine.
Future time morphine. So there's our sigma. Then we have what?
Connecting vowel.
Connecting vowel, which means nothing to us. Connecting, it just is a cushion. And then we have our ending, method. Now, what is this ending?
It is the first person plural.
First person plural, good. Now it is what voice?
Future, middle, sorry, the middle.
Good, middle voice. Not going to be your passive because we learned that the future has a different form for the passive.
Yeah, the passive would have had,
You don't know it yet. So, putting this all together, it would be we
We'll lose ourselves.
or we ourselves will lose because we have a direct object here.
We ourselves are losing the good slaves.
Yes.
Are losing?
Will.
Will lose. I was focused on the second half of that sentence. Sometimes my mind does that. We ourselves will lose the good servants or slaves. And we'll end with number 6.
vocabulary. Oh, and is it do one more?
Do one more. I mean,
Psych is from the Greek.
and it means life, so drink it in. All right, last one, and I'll pronounce. Nun este hamarteloi ala tate eseste, quioi thetu.
Well, noon is now.
Yeah, Nesta is,
Is it to be,
it's you are.
Amartoloi is sinners.
Good. All right, so that clause is now
You all are sinners.
you are sinners.
But,
Good.
Toady. But then, este, huion theon. But now you're sons of God.
See, this is what he wants to do to you. He wants you to think that. It's very close, though. So, este, you translated it right. It is, I want a parsing before you try to tell me what you should have said. Este is,
Y'all are.
Y'all are.
you all are. That is a good translation, but I want a parsing.
You will be.
You will be.
That is the
there's-
next one, but I want a parsing for este.
Oh, sorry.
So lexical form is Amy.
Good, Amy. And it is a, you got your translation,
Tense
Tense
is
is
present.
present. We don't have voice for your to-be verb. so
Second
it's just a
person
present
plural.
indicative. Second plural. Third. Keep doing that, second plural. Now,
You will be.
yes, estesta
That's right there.
is you, mind is going, you will be. Parsing it,
Lexical form again, or no, lexical form would be.
same thing, Amy.
Second person, plural,
And tense,
future.
good, future.
Take
That was his goal there, he wanted to show you the difference between este and esesta. Now, you are sinners. Last clause there.
but then you will be sons of God.
Good. Homework, 7 through 11. Perfect middle passive, know it. Know your future middle indicative. And your vocabulary. And for Joyce, you've learned a semester of Greek after you get that done and come in here.